All right, here we go. It is podcasting time. Glenn Power is here. I'm James Pikeway, and you are listening to Powerworks, the podcast. And you might be watching us. However you're getting this show, whether it is on 100.3 Talk in Dubai, which means you are in your car and you are being held hostage by us, welcome. Or if you've just chosen to give us a listen, give us a watch on YouTube, on Spotify, on any of the streaming channels, we are global. Welcome. Great to have you with us. And this podcast is all about cars. We just talk about the automotive industry. I mean, that's essentially what we do. And how you can go into a garage and at least, or whatever you call it a garage too, when you a garage or a workshop, wherever you're taking your car to get it fixed. So hopefully you don't get ripped off. Or at the minimum, you're going to have the questions to ask so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to engage those mechanics in your car repair escapades or not. That's what we do. Yeah. By the way, I left a present for you guys out on your toolboxes today, because every good garage needs to have a set of cookbooks.
Well, obviously, yeah.
The thing is, I come in here pretty frequently, and I get a chance to listen to you and DJ, and you're talking about this, that, and the other thing. You're talking about sports, you're talking about working out, you're talking about whatever, and there are more than once DJ has jumped into what he cooked last night or the food that he's been cooking, and I know that yourself, you like to get into the kitchen as well. So we were sort of going through some of our old cookbooks and realized, hey, there's some great cookbooks here that have done their life with us. And so I've been leaving them places. And so I left a half dozen over on your workbench to figure out what you want to do with them. Maybe even start cooking here in the shop.
We've got a gas stove in there, and we've got toaster.
Yeah.
What else have we got? We've got rice cooker.
You see? So it's a good kitchen.
Yeah. You got everything you need.
And I think at my workplace, I keep wanting to put a barbecue out in the parking lot. So I go out at lunchtime, just a gas barbecue, fire it up, throw some, could be vegetables on there, throw some meat on there, but, just have a social barbecue at lunch.
Not a bad idea.
I keep floating it. No one is buying into it yet, but
I guess they would. I mean, obviously they don't know the caliber of chef that you are, James.
Yeah.
I guess if you were to cook one thing bad, you potentially put the whole workforce out of service the next day.
Yeah. So health and safety keeps coming in.
Yeah, the horrible health and safety attitude of the European Union that I'm infected with tells me that's probably not the best idea. But it's obviously a good idea to cook meat every day.
Exactly. Yeah. Sad news in the news. I forwarded it to you. I was this morning, of course, I was, as everyone does, checking their phone in the washroom. I've actually been to a couple, I'm an avid swimming pool privily user. And so I get to assess many of the hotels in Dubai, especially their change rooms and their facilities and et cetera. So if you got questions, fire those through, because I go to a lot of these places to hang out by the pool. And I've noticed now that many of them are accommodating mobile phones in the places where typically you wouldn't have a mobile phone. They've got tables, they've got sanitizers, they've got all sorts of stuff. So they're cognizant that people are going into these places and maximizing the time.
Yeah, I mean, I it's like the only bit of me time I get sometimes. I hate the idea of being on my phone.
Yeah. So there I was, scrolling through the old news feed really quickly this morning, and I saw that GM is discontinuing the Malibu. 1960, they started making that rig.
Yeah, it's and the reason for it is to focus more on EVs.
EVs and SUVs. It's like they're converting the factory to an EV place. They're going to make an upscale Bolt. I just went, what? I get the economics. I get that a bean counter somewhere is making that decision and saying, look, financially, we're going to keep more people on the production line. We're going to keep more people employed. We're going to make more money. Everyone's going to make more money, and it's better for the planet. So we're going there. Well, I don't know. That's the thing. But it was just really like, this is one of the last sedans being made by an American manufacturer, and it's gone. It's going.
Synonymous with the brand as well.
Yeah.
Malibu. Everybody, in fact, the word Malibu, a lot of people, especially anyone with any kind of a car interest, you would Chevy Malibu. It goes together.
Yeah.
Someone says Malibu, "Oh, you mean Chevy? No, I mean the place. But most people,
Yeah.
not a good thing, is it? Audi built their last R8 a few weeks ago, and VW are getting rid of the Golf and only doing electronic versions of it. And
Hold on a second. The R8, they're not making any more of those either?
the last one rolled off the line.
Wow. It's a sad day. So all these sedans are going. People are jumping into the SUVs.
Sedans have been dying for a while.
Yeah, and I don't understand why.
No, I don't get it either.
You look at the roads. Yes, there's a lot of SUVs here, but there are a lot of sedans. There are a lot of small sedans. Like they are, the 4-door. You get in and you got a big boot, big trunk. Throw all your stuff in and get on the road and go.
Yeah, it's maybe they'll come back. Sort of 80s fashion. They'll just turn. In a few years they'll come back. But I just don't understand. They're still big in China, apparently. And then if you look at all the weird...
That is what I was going to say, is when you look at some of the really good Cadillacs now that are coming out, the sedans, they're only sold in one place. They're only made in one place, and that's China.
All the sort of weird and wonderful models that you get that VW sell in China, that they build in China under partnership, a lot of them are sedans.
And I keep hoping, because we have such a large Chinese car market here in the UAE, that some of these cool vehicles that are coming out of China will come here. Like some of these great sedans. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the Cadillac yet, but I keep hoping.
Yeah, it's always that problem with the ability to maintain and service the parts supply, whether there's any differences and whether you can actually get the parts, because VW here aren't going to let you, expect to go and take your Chinese VW in. They're just not going to. They don't work on the ID6s, for example.
So I remember we talked about this when the ID6s were coming in, and there was a gray area, and then the government said no more, because there's obviously a VW franchise here, and VW does not sell the ID6 here. It has not been approved yet for this weather and this climate and this region, so they're not servicing them. So what happens? This is sort of that larger thing, and I'll frame it. Let me back up a second, because people are going, where are you going with this, James? But there are all sorts of Chinese cars being imported right now into the UAE, and some of them under the badge and with a dealership and etc. But there are also those that are being imported that aren't necessarily being sold here yet, but there is a dealer for them. And there's a very good possibility they will not be repaired by those dealerships. So what are those people? It's almost like a buyer beware scenario that I'm walking towards here, because some of these cars look great. They're a super price.
Yeah.
But the cars break. And if you can't get them fixed, you're going to be left standing there, holding your head, or you can get them fixed, but it's going to cost you a premium, which suddenly doesn't make it valuable anymore.
Sometimes the premium isn't just a financial cost; it's a time off the road cost. If you've got to wait 3 months for a part that's immobilized the vehicle, you've got to rent a car during that time, or some kind of solution has got to be found for you getting your kids to school or getting to work and back, or whatever it may be. You can't. It's very difficult. The public transport system is okay here, but it's not mature, is it? It's relatively.
Yeah, I mean, and it works, but here's an example, because don't for a minute our friends over at the Dubai government to think that we are dissing in any way RTA and RTA transport, because I'm an advocate.
The metro's 15 years old. You can't, there's networks over the world that are 115 years old.
And the bus system from when I arrived in 2000 till today is spectacular. But what we're talking about when we talk about some of the gaps in public transport would be, for instance, I work in Academic City, and so Academic City, Silicon Oasis, that kind of area. Now they have dial-a-bus in there, and there is a bus that goes there, but there's not a metro. And predominantly, even people living over in Silicon who are going over to Academic City, which is across the road, aren't using public transport, and so that area is a gap. And a big gap that that they're working on, and it'll be fixed. It's coming about. Give it another couple of years, the metro will be coming out that way. There will be a solid bus infrastructure working, but that creates the problem when we talk about people using the public transport and saying, okay, so my car's in the shop, I'll take the bus. Car's in the shop, no, I'm going to have to take an Uber or a Careem.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get a friend. It's a pain in the neck.
Yeah, that's right. And also you've got the fact that, even when you can get the bus, you don't get to the office. You might be 200-300 meters, even a kilometer away from where you actually need to go.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a problem to walk, except in July and August when it's 45, 50 degrees and it's 80% humidity. That's quite a problem.
Yeah.
So, it's you need a car, and to have it off the road waiting for a part. I mean, VW, I just found it now. They put on their Middle East website a press release based on grey market imports, and it says, look, they give 3 main reasons as to why they're concerned about grey market imports. Number 1, these vehicles may not meet all the local legal requirements.
And when we talk about that, we're talking bumpers, we're talking signal lights, we're talking exhaust systems, brake systems.
Yeah, there's lots of different things that can be out of spec, shall we say.
Yeah.
Number 2, these vehicles have not been tested nor authorised by VW to be used in the Middle East. Therefore, the brand cannot guarantee their proper functionality. Somebody like Volkswagen, any car manufacturer, they like to be known where possible as reliable.
Yeah.
And then if they've all of a sudden got a load of cars breaking down in a market, you might not think I want to buy an ID6, but when you see them all sat at the side of the road broken down, that might tarnish your view of the brand itself, and then you won't go and buy a local vehicle. Yeah. So that's...
I think it's worth, and we've all seen these disguised cars. Usually they're got some black and white.
Test ones, yeah.
And these vehicles, literally, I remember we had a gentleman from Ford, one of their chief engineer in the region here, one time on the show, and he was talking about the fact that they'll drive this thing around for a couple of months. They'll really drive it hard. It's collecting all sorts of data, and then based on that data, they make tweaks to the entire system of the car, and they decide, oh, you know what, we need a larger rad. We need to have an extra oil cooler. We need to have better weighting on the suspension, and things that might not be the case in North America or in England. And this is really important for those cars, because then they're going to have longevity here.
Yeah.
If you just bring something in, which you can do in some cases, it's buyer beware.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it is a shame. I mean, we're obviously talking about Chinese cars. We were talking about the death of the Sedan.
Yeah.
But there is obviously I think there's still a appetite for sedans, but I also think that there's a lot to be said for an SUV in that you get a higher seated position.
Yeah.
A bit more headroom inside. Not always the case, I find, to be fair, because of the way the seats are in a sedan. I mean, I can get sedans right down low.
I got a good one for you. Buddy drives a Fortuner. You ever gotten into a Fortuner? I would love to see you getting into a Fortuner.
Ooh, we get a few in.
You ever get in the driver's seat?
They're not exactly roomy.
So it's a weird thing. So it's almost like it's a sedan, small sedan on an SUV chassis. But every time we get in, the curve of the hood is a little too low, and the oh crap handle is sticking out at about 11 o'clock. And every time I see him get in, and I mean, this is every day, he hits his head on that handle. And I asked him the other day, how many times you hit your head on that thing? He says, well, at least once a day. And he knows it's there, but it's almost like there's no way to get into it comfortably without knocking your head.
Yeah, avoid hitting the handle.
And if you don't hit the handle, you hit the door or the roof. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's an SUV, but it doesn't necessarily have entry space room.
Yeah, the other thing with an SUV is like the boot space. The boot space is good in terms of a volume, but it's not as usable as a big sedan. Because a big sedan's huge and square and flat. You can lay everything out nice and neat, and it's not going to move around. But with an SUV, it's sort of a case of stacking it on top. you're stacking things up and things are falling over, and then they're stacked up over the back of the headrest of the back seat, so you can't see out the window.
Yeah.
So
it's a false economy. I mean, there's things that are good about it, especially if you're going to use it in the wild. The idea that you can put it in 4-wheel, or if you get really inclement weather, okay, I've got some options. And let me tell you, when we had that rain, having the extra lift because of the SUV, that was very nice.
Yeah, but the SS in SUV is the problem for me as well. It's a sports utility vehicle.
I thought that stood for sexy.
So in some circles, but not the car one. But the sports utility vehicle, and then you look at them and you think, that's got a 1.5 in it. You know, what's sporty about that? It's not even, okay, small engine, fine. You can have fast cars with small engines in, but like the suspension's wallowy and it's just not sporty at all. Yeah. So, I understand it. There is a feeling of safety or perceived safety because you've got a higher seating position and the car looks bigger, so you think, oh, that'll do better in an accident. It's not always the case. Some of these sedans with like 17 airbags and, they are very, very, very safe.
I think generally speaking, a sedan is safer than in most of the tests that I ever see of SUVs, with crumpling and with flipping and rolling. And yes,
that's always a problem.
The sedans don't tend to roll.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, tend to have a better cage system in them. I mean, this is generalities, but watch some of those tests of which vehicles are getting the worst ratings on crash test.
Well, they're not coming back. They're dying. We're not going to be able to save them. No. Nobody cares about our opinion, James.
But maybe the UAE is going to be the place where they live, because there's a lot here.
You still see, look how many of the old LS 400s and 430s do you see?
They're going nowhere.
Yeah. And obviously taxis.
Yeah.
Almost all of our taxis here are sedans, right?
Yeah. Well, there's
Elantras and
that's true.
Camrys and
Yeah.
So there's a lot of market for them in terms of the taxi, but it's just the way it is. It's just the way it's going. I'm not entirely sure that Chevrolet getting rid of the Malibu, it probably would have been better received. I'd be interested to see how it's received in America, actually, because it would have probably been better received by a section of society had they just said, look, we're just getting rid of it, no one buys it anymore, sorry. But to say we're getting rid of it to build more EVs, that's going to be received in a very different way.
And the other side of it is that just gets me scratching my head. There's a little bit monkey see, monkey do here, because everyone's getting rid of their stance. So, well, we're going to follow suit. Maybe they know something we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe their researchers told them something we don't know. And that's why I always think that Mazda typically has got it switched on, because they'll just say, we're not making this, we're not doing that, we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep doing it till we can't sell anymore.
Yeah.
But if everyone else stops selling them, then they're going to be the only place to turn. If you really want a sedan, well, I guess I'm going to go Mazda.
Yeah, well, because of, again, back to China, because of things like the difference in regulation between European Union and China, for example. So Volvo have said they're not building any more engines, right? Not building any more internal combustion engines, but they've got a massive partnership with a Chinese engine manufacturer. So they're just building them in China where nobody can see.
Yeah.
So, people are still doing that, and there's a massive, massive influx of focus, shall we say, from all the manufacturers on the Chinese market, on the Indian market.
Mm-hmm.
India's, for the last however many years, been the fastest growing economy on the planet. There's billions, literally, of people there
that are just clamoring to buy their first car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously,
Tata knows that. And those guys they got their finger on the pulse.
Yeah, they've got Tata. They've got the Maruti stuff, Suzuki.
Yeah.
But people are coming out of poverty there. The economy is growing, and people are, they're growing effectively. The working and middle class, and then what's happening is they're going to want, oh, you know what? I might go and get myself a Mercedes.
Yep.
So, but that growth isn't necessarily in line with. There's still places that have brownouts, blackouts. There's still places there that don't. So, what are you going to do when you've plugged your EV in?
Yeah, let's see. This is a problem.
Middle of monsoon season, and you've got no power.
Yeah, problem.
Problem. I think it becomes and look, Elon Musk is, rightly so. Elon Musk is playing a bit politics back with his supercharger network.
Yeah,
right.
He's pulling back big time.
Yeah. They've tarnished him because of the things that he's allowed to be said about people, and then He's moved away from, basically been forced out of California by all accounts, and I think now they're wanting his supercharger network to help deliver their EV targets, because all these manufacturers are saying we can't give you these cars because there's nowhere to charge them. Yeah. And all these municipalities and everything in states in America are saying, well, there's nowhere to charge the cars.
Yeah, look, nothing untoward with Mr. Musk, but sometimes I think it's a little bit like, he's throwing his toys out of his crib now, because he started it and he got it going and he got all these things going and he was well ahead of the game. People have caught up with at least making the vehicles.
He was, yeah,
and now he's saying, hey, I started this. I'm now going to pull out because you got to step up too.
But he also allowed all the other manufacturers to use his superchargers.
Yeah.
And now he's sort of saying, actually, you know what? I'm getting zero support here from the government.
Yeah. What's in it for me?
Yeah, screw you, basically.
Yeah, and you guys have to step up now.
The government are making the regulations that he has to work within. So why aren't they doing anything? You can't expect the person. You can't have it both ways, and I think that's going to be an interesting development there, because obviously everyone knows he has a close relationship with the higher ups in VW. They've tested each other's vehicles and ultimately inspired each other to go the way they're going. But when there's no Mark 9 Golf GTI to look forward to,
why do you keep rubbing that in?
Because
every time you say that, I think back to my Golf Cabriolet, 1995. So it was a 1980 something, 90. It was 90, I think. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
There's not going to be another one.
I got married in that. Well, that was we drove up to the reception hall in our VW. They're directing us to go park in the parking lot until they noticed, oh, that's the bride and groom.
But there isn't going to be another one. Yeah. They're only going to do electric, and they might not do that. And that's because of this whole clamoring for all these crazy ways of scoring businesses, and how can we all be seen to be socially conscious, and it just, it's very difficult to understand now I'm sure, I'd like to think that behind the scenes people are assessing this, and it's not just wholeheartedly going after something because it's in the zeitgeist at the moment. I'd like to think that people are looking at it and they're saying, maybe we can.
That's the first time we've used the word zeitgeist on this podcast. We've now stepped up the game. Yeah. We're referencing the zeitgeist now. So,
but that is very much what it is, right? And we talked last week about people not being able to trade their old EV in for a new one because the dealer don't want them because the new models are out and they've lost so much value. There's nothing they can give for them.
That story, for those who weren't listening to the last podcast, just to bring you up to speed, this was a gentleman who had a Porsche.
Yeah, Taycan, yeah.
And a Porsche Taycan, and he wanted to upgrade.
He basically wanted rid of an EV and wanted a 911, but the dealer
he'd had a loan on it and the whole thing, and no one would take it off his hands. Yeah. He's stuck with a vehicle and a huge mortgage on it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah, because you see, the difference is that you take the little Datsun that we've got in at the minute, the Z car.
That's right? That's a Z80 or 70?
So that car is still usable today.
That's a beautiful car,
too. Mechanical attention on it. Of course it does, but any machine does. But with the EVs, in 7-8 years, when the batteries have gone, now, okay, things like that might start to get cheaper, but the mineral resources are getting more scarce.
Right.
The world isn't exactly stable. What are the economics of, what do you do with a 7 or 8 year old EV? Teslas are coming to that age now, a lot of them are older than that. So people are finding that out, and it just seems very much like everyone's got overexcited at after work drinks, and you've all decided to book some weird holiday somewhere, and you've all just gotten in, and the next morning you've woke up thinking, I wish I'd not done that. We've all been there. You've been to a party and everyone gets giddy, and you start to decide things that you shouldn't be doing. You make
decisions and promises.
Yeah, and I just feel like the EV thing just seems like that. I just don't get, it just doesn't seem very long term. We've seen this slowly over the motor trade where, particularly in Japan, they used to put their vehicles off the production line, and they'd know that a model was going to run 10, 12 years because technology wasn't as involved in cars back then. So they'd have them doing 200,000-300,000 miles on test beds, stopping every few hours and then doing oil changes in the right way. That doesn't happen anymore. Cars are just thrown out there because Mercedes are saying, "Oh no, BMW have just put night vision on there, so we've got to now do a new thing where, the seat
all cars should have night vision." Like honestly,
well, no, but it's that gimmick of iPhone versus Samsung. An S24 versus an iPhone 15. Samsung have got a glare-free screen, and we've got to change. We've got to improve. We just get the new one out there quick. And we saw what happened with the Note 7. It used to set on fire because they rushed it out.
Yeah.
These things didn't.
I had
used
one
to
of those
happen.
notes. It didn't catch fire, but it just kind of disappeared.
But these things get rushed, and I feel that that's where we're at with the EV. I think it sounds like a great idea, but I'm not entirely sure that it is.
You got an EV charger here in the garage. You get a lot of use out of it? Get a lot of EVs in?
We like to plug an EV in when it comes in because we don't want it dying. And, it's a little bit of a customer brings the car in.
They leave with a full charge.
60% of charge. And when they pick it up, it's got a full charge. That's
great. That's got to make them feel good. It's those little things.
Because I ran one for a while and we spoke about it. It's the anxiety of, is the charger going to be any good?
Yeah.
Now I can find something to do. Like for you, you drive between campus. You've said yourself you can sit in the back of the transport and you can work on your laptop.
Yeah.
So if you had an EV, you could work while it was charging. There's always something you can do.
Yeah.
Right. So, but getting to a charger and it not working, or getting to a charger it being damaged or busy or whatever, that's a problem.
I'm actually kind of excited about. Excited, not excited. Got to go back to Canada for non-exciting reasons, but we've got a Turo, rented a Wrangler, and it's a Wrangler hybrid that's got the EV option on it, and I just wanted to try it out, and it was affordable, so we've thought I'm going to give this thing a try just to see, knowing full well that the Wrangler that I will eventually return home to, because I've already planned this out. Because and my kids just said, "Dad, you live in an era," and I said, "Yeah, but my era is 2008." And he goes, "So, and not wanting to someday leave my Jeeps here, which I will leave here because they do not transport to Canada. The specs don't match." But bought the same year a vehicle back in Canada, which people are saying, "Are you insane when you can get a newer one?" I said, "Yeah, but I know all that's going to break down." I know all the repairs that need to be done, so I'm familiar.
I'm taking a container worth of parts with me.
I'm familiar with it. Actually, on a side note, I had to get on a vehicle the same kind of things that I have done here. Like it's crazy because this vehicle need to get safetied, and so took it in and they looked and they said, "Okay, you need ball joints, and you need if you're going to do the ball joints, you might as well do the arms there." So they're doing all that. And aftermarket parts, just comparing the prices, kind of going, there's a lot more of these things in North America. You can find aftermarket at maybe half the price.
Yep, 100%. We mentioned that, didn't we, a few weeks ago, and we talked about it. It's unfortunate that it's not going to be economically sensible for you to take parts with you from here because you know what parts you need. But you just have to buy them up.
Buy them there, but there's way more options. And then also there's also the other side, and so my son's sending me pictures of the guys at where he's getting it all done. And he's got he knows some Jeep guys. So I said, "Of course you do." So they're working on it, and the same kind of thing. There are a lot of really complex vehicles, and of course the internal combustion engine is complex. But generally speaking, Jeep Wrangler 2008 year model is pretty easy to fix. Like there's not a lot of things.
And any mechanic, even, a few years into the job will have worked on one or two before.
Right. And so that's what I was seeing in the picture. I'm looking, okay, these are pretty young mechanics. Yeah. Not that that's an issue, but it was just like, all right. And they knew what they're doing. And they got it done. So I was kind of like...
I'm surprised you've gone for the hybrid though, James. Do you not remember what happened in Florida?
Oh, no. This is the rental thing. But now I know what to do if I have an issue. And I'm not going to be anywhere near the bayou or the
no
swamps.
Snakes and gators.
No, I'm going to be in city, so this should be an okay thing. But now I also know, keep a wrench with you. And if there's a big issue, disconnect the battery so you can reconnect. So I think I'll be okay. I'm willing to chance it again.
for the love of a Wrangler.
Exactly. I thought, I'm going to give this a try.
What are you going to do, though, if you like it?
It's got a small steering wheel. So, yeah. I mean, what's not to like? It's almost a brand new vehicle, right? And yeah. At the end of the day, I can't afford a new car. That's the other thing. When people, you look at that, look at what the new Wranglers cost here.
Sure.
I can't afford one of those. I don't know how I afford it. Well, I know when I got my Wranglers back in the day in 2008, the price was remarkably different than they sell them for now.
Well, I mean, you can go over 250K for a Wrangler.
Well, that's what when I see that, I kind of go, how's that possible?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the sports or the Willys and stuff are a bit more bare bones and basic, but still, you go Sahara.
Yeah. Like I don't think when I bought my Sahara, I think my first Sahara was a showroom one where they were, test driving. Demo. So obviously there was a discount off on that, but I'm positive it wasn't over 100,000 dirhams and it was brand new.
Crazy, yeah.
And now that same vehicle would cost me probably closer to 200,000. And I'm thinking 100,000 dirhams more. So anyway, I kind of look at it and say, go used, go with something go. And for us, it almost came down to the vehicle that you're going to get into and just go, am I going to get great gas economy? No.
Yeah.
Am I going to get a smooth ride? No.
Yeah. Is it going to be quiet on the road? No. Yeah.
But it's all the things I'm used to now. Is that my son's complaint was, he's driving around in a Corolla and he's going, man, it's bouncy and it's stiff to drive. And I'm going, yeah, it's not a sedan. And my wife's going, well, that's all I drive anyway. So his complaints or observations from driving a nice, smooth, small, easy to fuel efficient sedan compared to a big, bulky, bouncy, noisy, gruff, grumbly SUV. Maybe just utility vehicle. I'm not so sure there's much sport in it. So it's it's one of those things.
Yeah, well, like say, people like what they like. You know what you know. You'll drive it. You'll enjoy driving it. You know that no matter what, it's always going to be fixable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that was, for me, that was a big issue because I know it's going to need repairs. I mean, all cars do, but I know what it's going to need, and I can afford the parts. So that's. But ball joints, it was another one because when they said, oh, you got to put ball joints in, I go, man, ball joints are something people forget about.
Yeah, there's ball joints on. I mean, effectively, there's ball joint on suspension arms. There's ball joints on effectively on tire ends.
Yeah, and they go.
They're everywhere. Yeah. And it's usually a case of they're accelerated in their wear by the rubber boot that's there to protect them splitting. Yeah. But unfortunately, because of how they have to move, there's no way to avoid having that rubber boot on there. You can't put a steel gaiter on it because it's not going to flex.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. So.
Well, if you're lucky, you get 70,000 kilometers out of a pair of those.
Well, ball joints used to be serviceable, didn't they? Ball joints used to have grease nipples on. You used to be able to put grease in them. I don't know why that stopped.
I was looking underneath the vehicle. I always look under my cars anyway. But I've told you the story that in the auto shop when I was in high school. My high school was comprehensive, so it had everything in it. A full auto shop, a full woodworking shop, full electric shop, full machine shop. Then, health sciences, they had, all that kind of stuff, kitchen sciences, computer sciences, they had everything. It was amazing. But that was the era when there were grease nipples.
Yeah. Cynically,
I don't know when they went away. I
think it's down to the fact that sell more parts if you don't give people a chance to keep them on, You
almost don't need a grease gun anymore.
No, we actually we were looking for ours the other day.
Dude, looking for it.
Yeah.
Where's that grease gun? Anyone say the grease gun?
We've got two garages and we've only got one grease gun, and we'd sent it to the other garage.
That's how often you use it. You don't need them anymore.
No, that's it.
But 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that would have been a staple tool.
Yeah, you grease joints on props and ball joints on suspension when you have a service, and that was just part of it.
Yeah.
Just part of it. I mean, like I say, cynical maybe, but you sell more suspension components if you don't give people a chance to service them, right?
Well, that was when we were talking weeks ago about Range Rover Discovery, and we were looking at the rear suspension and whatever that piece was, and you said, well, you don't fix it, you unbolt it, and you put a new one on. And 20 years ago, you would have fixed that, or would have just been okay. We just need to put a new washer on and make sure that
me and DJ used to look after somebody's Land Rover Defender in the UK, and we used to build ball joints for them. Put ball joints together. It used to come as a kit. Build them up.
Yeah,
doesn't happen now. That it's not. It's cynical, I know, but it's definitely down to the manufacturers saying we can make more money if we don't service them.
Yeah, I believe it.
By selling parts.
And it changes the whole dynamic of creating the part as well, because then it's just a solid piece.
Yeah, I mean, with the grease nipple, there is more room for something failing, I guess. There is, but nipples are relatively easy to replace when they fail. It's not like, and they were all standard size.
Exactly. Everyone's got it. You just have a drawer full of them.
Size, So it's difficult to and that's the other thing, right? You just mentioned young mechanics on your Wrangler. What are they going to do when somebody turns up with an old car that's got, say an old Land Rover that's got grease nipples on it?
Yeah.
Look, what are they?
They anyone got one of these? What is this thing?
Go and ask the head mechanic, like, how do you bleed brake fluid out of this? Because that's the only time they'll ever have seen a grease nipple.
Yeah.
Brake fluid. They'll think it's for that. So then they don't know what it is, so they won't do anything with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I remember being. What was it, like 2004, being taught about points and condenser ignition systems and saying, and being at the time because of my age, and just being and being a technician and doing stuff with what I'd been doing, being like, why are you teaching me this crap?
Yeah, I'm never going to need this.
It's not because you're definitely going to work on it, although you almost certainly are going to at some point. But it gives you that understanding to understand it's the underpinning knowledge of where we are today. How did we get there? Because it's one thing to take a maths class and be like, I don't really know why, but I can understand the log function. But I can memorize it. I don't need to understand it. But you can't work like that from a diagnostic point of view when you're doing cars. You need to understand, okay, so why is this car running that way if this ignition course failed? You've got to understand the steps, and points and condenser was one that I remember learning about, thinking, bore off. I don't care. But then, within weeks, we've got the owner of the company that I work for, the owner of the franchise that I work for, with his Type 2 in. And of course, the person I'm under the wing of at the time is no problem with all that stuff. And I'm just stood there thinking, I wish I'd listened a bit more now. Yeah. He's really going to go to town on my review.
Yeah.
So it's hard at that age, but you've got to understand. And it's the same with these skill sets are getting lost. And, we started talking about the Malibu and it's stopping production, and those people that made that car and all the people that build internal combustion engines, that they've been doing it for 30, 40 years, some of them probably.
Yeah.
Are they now too old to return themselves to something else? What do you do then?
Yeah. And do you want to? I mean, I wonder if you just become niche then and say, okay, I'm just going to work in this very niche area.
Yeah.
And I think we're in that window now. So again, there's lots of hydrogen talk going on in the back, sort of in the background. I don't think anyone who's involved with electric or internal combustion wants to even talk hydrogen, because you say, hey, we put all our money now into electric, we can't talk hydrogen. So you're trying to silence that. But you've got probably a 40-year window where slowly we're going to phase into the next gen of something.
Yeah.
And in that window, it's not an instant stop. So you're going to have those stragglers with vehicles, and then they will just make it more expensive for people to own them, and they'll put more taxes on it, and then you'll have a few collectors left.
Yeah, well, the hydrogen, for me, and I think for anybody that genuinely takes their time to research any of this shift from internal combustion, I think the hydrogen solution is the only one that's sustainable and the only one that doesn't kill the planet at a faster rate than seemingly what the EVs are doing compared to the internal combustion. But
with EVs, I see no one talking about the recycling of the batteries.
Yeah.
No one talks about it.
No one talking about the sourcing of the product.
Mr. Musk must have a whole recycling system in place. Like he's thought of everything else.
Yeah, well, look, I like Elon Musk, and he gets a tough stick. But why do you think he's trying to go to Mars? He knows, doesn't he? But no, like at the end of the day, the hydrogen shift or EV or whatever, both at the same time until we ultimately go to hydrogen, still affects people that have built internal combustion. You're still going to have a whole skill set that goes a lot missing, and then, like you say, it does become niche. And then at that point, people are going to be paying $1,000 an hour for someone to go and work on the car. Because there's 16 people in the country that are able to do it, which is great for those people that keep it out. But you're going to have some serious faith to get to that point. Yeah. A 1960 Cadillac now, who don't want one? Everybody wants one. It's a Cadillac from the 60s. Everybody would take one. It's a classic, and they want, and someone would appreciate paying a premium to keep it on the road. But in 1978, it was just scrap it. What are you doing? It's 16 years old. Get rid of it.
1965 Parisienne with the back window in the Parisienne 1965 version would go down into who knows where, somewhere in the front of the trunk. You're talking about the boot, the trunk of a sedan where you could get all your stuff in. You could fit a family of 5 into the back of a Parisienne's trunk.
But you see that car in 65 was a new car.
Yeah.
And now it's 60 years old almost.
Yeah.
It's appreciated for what it was. Not necessarily everybody, but it's still, if you had one now and you were like, oh man, and you came to me and was like, oh, I've got a chance to get this, I've always wanted it. And I'm like, look, James, it's going to cost you 45,000 euros to put it on the road. You're probably going to scratch your head for a little bit, maybe not tell your wife, and then you're going to say, okay, let's do it. But in 1980, when it was 15 years old, you come to me and I say, okay, let's reduce for inflation. And I say, oh, it's going to be 10,000 euros. You say, no, it's a scrap. Yeah. I'll get rid of it. And that's what happened, right? So you're going to have to, you've got that pain.
Yeah.
They've stopped building so many cars, so many internal combustion cars that people are going to shift out of it, and everyone's going to want to be a software engineer.
Yeah.
They still need fixing, and unless they get outlawed, which they're not going to get outlawed, there's still going to be hobbyists. You're not allowed to run around shooting guns at people, but there are shooting ranges where people go and have their hobby of shooting in target practice. So there's still going to be that hobby element to it. There's still going to be people that want to drive something round a racetrack and hear more than just tyre screech.
Yeah.
There are people that are going to want to do that, and if you can stick to it, then 25, 30 years time, you might find that, wow, I'm making a fortune fixing 2 cars a month.
Exactly. Yeah.
That might be what it is, but you've got to.
Well, because you might also be making the parts on the 3D printer or whatever, because there are going to be some things where they just don't make them anymore.
That's where the potential issues would come. Yeah.
And it's going to require, custom making of everything.
Fortunately, at the minute, we haven't quite mastered teleportation. Although I've been reading, I'll send it. Yeah, I think it was on Popular Mechanics. There's been an improvement in it, and certainly from data rather than physical entities. But until we master that, we still need machines and carriages to get us around. So there'll still be suspension and brakes and wheels and tires and lubricating fluids and all that sort of stuff that's going to have to be made. So while ever that's the case, that's going to be the way it is. And look, how many people now have, run around with resto mods? People do it. You find a way. If you can't get the original engine for your Plymouth, well, all right, we'll create a Hellcat and put one of those in it. It's big money, but I want the car and I want it on the road, and that's going to happen. I just hope we get more Teslas with LS engines in them, because that's got to be cheaper than buying a new battery at this point, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Getting a crated LS engine or even a Hellcat and just putting it in a Tesla, it's got to be cheaper than a new battery.
Last night we were over at Murdoch City Center, and they've got a Cybertruck in there, and everyone's clamoring around it and they're looking, and I actually haven't seen one in the wild, so I was, just from a distance, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. It's like, did you see the viral video going around at the minute of the guy that...
I didn't like the steering wheel. I saw the steering wheel and I just said, I'm out of here.
Well, the guy that finally got one, and then he was doing the rollback test on the
Didn't he
the
cut
front.
His finger or something?
Cut his finger, and then the bonnet effectively just came down, and he's supposed to ping back, and he didn't.
Yeah.
Well, that was supposed to have bulletproof glass as well, right?
Right.
And then they tested it on stage with a shot put, and it went straight through it. So that now no longer has bulletproof glass.
So there were a lot of people looking, and it actually caught my attention. I was thinking DeLorean because of the finish.
the finish,
And
the matte
it
finish.
was funny because as I was looking, only thing that caught my eye, so I'm looking and they got the doors open and you're seeing inside. And so, me being pedantic about steering wheels, I just took one look and went, it's just, no, not going to
That's
work.
the part you're in contact with.
Yeah.
You're actually looking
you
at.
hold that. And I know my wife says I'm obsessed with them. I said, yeah, but I live with the steering wheel. So,
Yeah.
so I say that and I kind of went, and I'm looking at the body design. I'm kind of going, okay, it's kind of futuristic. It's kind of, when you're in grade 5 and you've got your math book open and that's the car you draw.
Yeah, on graph paper.
Yeah, that is the one that you've just
agree.
drawn.
First lesson of design. Yeah.
But and maybe the 5-year-old, then you get your crayons out and you're done, and you've got. And I'm wondering if one of Elon Musk's children designed that vehicle.
I wouldn't be surprised if he said it's a truck I drew when I was a kid.
I would.
Do you know what? More power to him.
For him, yeah.
I mean, amazing. Imagine if you could do that. Imagine if you could make the things you drew as a kid.
Can you imagine? He did. But what caught my attention, not all the lighting and this and that, was all the fingerprints on the door by where you're going to close it.
Because it's brushed. Yeah.
And I went, that would kill. That would drive me nuts. And then it gets warm, and so then you got all the oil from your hand in it, and then it's going to be.
You got sun cream on.
Yeah, there's going to come a point where you're never going to get it off, and you're always going to see. So you essentially need to have another little panel thing there to mask it. But that's what caught my attention from 25 feet away. I zeroed right in on that and went, nah, I don't want that.
Yeah, I think. Look, at the end of the day, you got a massive outlay of cash before you buy one of those.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could ever become, accused of being too picky.
No.
But I again, it's one of those things where they're going to be popular because of what they are.
Yeah. Everyone's taking pictures.
The next Samsung S25 or whatever, or the next iPhone 16 or whatever it's going to be, could come out with zero improvements, and there'll be people queuing to buy it.
Yeah. The other thing about the Cybertruck there, when I was looking at it, and it's parked in the mall, I'm in the middle of the mall. I'm trying to figure out.
It's big.
It is big,
Real
and I'm
big,
trying to
aren't they?
figure out how does this thing park in Mall of the Emirates?
Yeah,
Like,
it's big.
it's 2 parking spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
So, but I could also see them, being on the road here. I can see a handful of people going, I want one like now. And so I'm waiting to see one driving around.
They'll be everywhere.
Yeah.
Of course they will. But, if you got the money to buy one and you want to have the latest accessory, that is the one.
Yeah.
And hey, whatever.
Wait, we're gonna have to wrap things up. But next time around, let's talk fan belts. Let's talk kill switches. Let's talk the new Bentley engine. They're getting rid of the V12 and they're bringing in a smaller, more powerful, apparently. What's interesting in that link, you got to go and listen to it. If you haven't seen this, go and check out the Bentley article about Bentley. I found it in Car and Driver. But there's a piece down, when you scroll down, they just have the sound of the new engine. Now, the people did say no one had seen this thing in real life, but the sound that they put up sounds pretty mean. So that's kind of cool. And I think a really important thing that I'd love to talk about next time around is, and this is important not just for us here, but globally, cars do get damaged. Cars do get written off, whether it be for water or other things. Have a quick chat with folks about, and have a quick chat with you about, what do we need to look for in our vehicles to know if it has been scrapped, and especially if it's had water damage or smoke damage or whatever damage, so that we can be, educated consumers. Because
I did a piece for the National last week about that. Actually, they put it in on their website. They came and they looked around a few cars that we had in, and they looked for the obvious signs, because unfortunately we are getting more and more of them, and a lot of it is down to the fact that insurance garages are full and at capacity.
Right.
You go around Alcuz, there's a lot of insurance body shops here, and they are just swamped with cars with their carpets out and on the roof, which is really annoying, by the way. The fact that they've got a car in and they're just throwing carpet on the roof, but whatever. They're just all everywhere. Doors open, windows open, whatever they can do. Carpets on the roof, just drying cars out, and they can't get cars in. So then you've got a decision of, I can't ever get it repaired. Maybe I've dodged a bullet here because it won't go on the history because I haven't taken it for repair. Do I just try and do my bare minimum to it and sell it on.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of issues with used cars.
So let's kick off the show, our next podcast, with that conversation. We got a lot of time. We probably got 5 podcasts there. Thanks everyone for taking the time joining us. If you're on 100.3, thank you. And please comment, send it through on the WhatsApp. If you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, Spotify, however, comment, like, tell us what you think, send in questions.
We can take impolite comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Insults, personal insults.
Yeah.
Leave my mum out of it, but the rest is fine.
But all comments are good comments. So we love to hear from you. And really, thank you for taking the time. We hope that we've helped you in some way, shape, or form. Let us know. And we'll do this all again really, really soon. I'm James Pikeway.
Glenn Powell.
And this is the PowerWorks Podcast.